Hey guys, welcome back! I think it's time to turn our attention back inside the Castletown walls and get started on another tier. Yep, we've already done Lower Town and the docks, but there are 3 more tiers inside Castletown itself, and today we get to start on this first one. But if we want to start working on this area, we need to start by defining it, so we actually know what we're working with. It's not necessarily the easiest to imagine what this place will become when it's just an open crater into some very rough terrain. So let's see if we can get this sorted and work out how this layer is going to work. Well, that feels a lot easier to navigate and to envision this space. Instead of a giant hole which isn't overly inspiring, we now have some semblance of actual structure. And the most important part of that structure is knowing where the final top tier of the town is going to be, thanks to this black stone wall. So that means we just don't end up encroaching on its space and needing to redo our layout. Plus, like when we built the other 2 walls, having this up means we have a nice backdrop for this tier and don't have to see all of the rough terrain all the time. But the other main part of the structure we've built is the floor, and you may be wondering about all these random gaps, and well, I figured a little bit of town planning would probably be a good idea. So these gaps are where I'm currently thinking of putting buildings and are roughly the footprint of the building I want to put there. And I think all of these buildings are going to be houses, because I see this as the housing layer. Now, obviously we do have housing down in Lower Town, but this is where the more upscale residents live, and this comes through in quite a few ways. The first way is that these houses are quite a bit bigger than the houses we have down in Lower Town, and most of them, although not all of them, are going to be detached or semi-detached. The second way you know this is a more upper class neighbourhood is the fact that these houses have more land and therefore have room to actually have private gardens. While Lower Town have their window flower boxes, the residential tier are going to have actual gardens with plants and hedges and lounges and all that good stuff. And then there's the path itself, which is quite similar in size to the path in Lower Town, but it is a bit less functional and utilitarian, and instead it starts becoming more ornamental and pretty. So we've got some grass and flowers and benches and bushes all lining the streets, which definitely sets a different vibe to the Lower Town paths, which are much more about moving you through an area, and if you want to get to the actual houses, you're going to have to rely on some much less cared for pathways. And then finally, down here, all the way at the very end of the path, I want to add a public park, which is hopefully once again going to help emphasize the overall vibe of the area by adding even more greenery. And I think we have just about enough time today to give this park a shot. So let's get going! Now that is a very nice little park. It's definitely not the largest public park in existence, but it does still feel very inviting with the street lamps bracketing the entrance and just how bright everything is. I considered using actual grass instead of the moss as the base, but the grass colour in this area is quite dull, which is fine for our general use, but I wanted the park to have a more vibrant vibe, so the moss definitely helped achieve that. Plus, it makes the park feel like it's really well tended to with very healthy, bright grass. And also, since we were trying to go for a brighter vibe, that also limited our options for both trees and leaves, because most leaves are also just a little bit duller in this biome. However, as we discovered in our swamp project, azalea leaves and cherry leaves aren't affected by the biome in the same way, so they stay lovely and vibrant. So I decided that azalea leaves and flowering azalea leaves would make for a perfect border, and we'd use cherry trees as our tree of choice. And while I'm still not the best with trees, hence using vanilla designs for the largest trees, I wanted to have a bit of variety in size, so we have the two full-grown mature trees, which are both very similar in size, and then we have two young saplings, both at slightly different stages of development, which definitely adds some nice vertical variation, especially since most of our details are right down on the grass, with our flower beds and scattered flowers and all that good stuff. We also have our pond area because all good parks have to have a pond, and I decided to add some firefly bushes right on the edge because they fit in very nicely, and it means that at night we get the lovely firefly particle effect, which is still just such a good addition to the game. And I could have definitely buried some of these so we always have the particle effect, but since we already have all of the falling leaves from the trees all of the time, I think it's quite nice for the fireflies to be a bit less of a common treat and only show up at nighttime. And apart from that, we of course have plenty of benches and a picnic table, and overall it's a nice quiet little spot to spend some time, relax and just enjoy nature. And I really like it. It serves as the perfect destination for our path, it helps establish the vibe of the residential layer, and it looks good, so I am definitely going to call that a win. But on that note, I think I'm going to leave this episode here, and next time we are going to get started on some of the actual buildings. I think we marked out 9 spaces for different houses, so we better get going, and I am very much looking forward to it. Until then, thank you guys for watching, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!